once again today in a Donald Trump press conference. It ended up with no real answers to any of the questions because a lie is not an answer. That is something that reporters covering Donald Trump will have to contend with. And quite understandably, we're unable to contend with it today. I do not believe I would have done a better job if I were in that room as a reporter. Donald Trump makes sure that he is the only person in the room who has a microphone. So his is the only voice you can actually really hear on TV during a Trump press conference, because TV needs microphones. Reporters, in some instances, have to shout their questions over a crowd to be heard by Donald Trump. But even that shouting is difficult to pick up on the one microphone allowed in the room, which is right in front of Donald Trump. Donald Trump steamrolls through his words, turning out more lies per minute than any president in history. And so most of the Trump lies land uncontested by any of the reporters in the room. Sometimes what Donald Trump says after a question is an explicit refusal to answer the question, like today when Donald Trump said, "It's a military strategy, and I'm not answering your questions on military strategy." No other president has been allowed to respond to questions that way and leave it at that. Every other president who tried to say, "I'm not answering your questions on military strategy," would have been immediately bombarded with follow-up questions by the White House press corps. But no one dared to do that today in a so-called press conference where Donald Trump said the single most insane things ever said by a president of the United States about anything, very much including military strategy. In response to a serious question from the New York Times, Donald Trump refused to rule out going to war with Panama, Greenland, and Canada. It was, of course, a mistake for the New York Times to take the Donald Trump idiot bait in his opening remarks when he talked about taking control of the Panama Canal, Greenland, and Canada. That was the idiot bait in the press conference. Anyone who asks Donald Trump about what is now his public plan as of today to make Canada the 51st state, or to make Greenland part of the United States, or seize the Panama Canal, is falling for the Trump idiocy that will absolutely never, ever happen. Not one word Donald Trump speaks about those issues will ever happen. This is the Mexico will pay for the wall idiocy updated to 2025. Donald Trump knows he can't do the old Mexico will pay for the wall bit again. And Donald Trump knows that all of his bits must be progressively more and more outrageous. We are 8 years away from the ridiculous lie fantasy of Mexico will pay for the wall. So sure, it's time to make Canada the 51st state. And the press will jump at it and waste their questions about that nonsense. Canada has just a slightly larger population than California, so the Trump proposal is to make Canada the single largest congressional delegation in the House of Representatives. Most Trump voters probably do not know that Canada's future is actually not up to Donald Trump. Donald Trump cannot add any states to the United States. Donald Trump might not know that adding states is actually not a presidential power. The better question, and really the only question, if you have to ask one, to Donald Trump today about Canada would be, what is required to admit a new state? And you would find that Donald Trump has absolutely no idea. Donald Trump sent his son to Greenland today in a concerted effort to make you think about Greenland. Why? Donald Trump has no capacity for embarrassment, so saying something as stupid as Greenland should be part of the United States and possibly a state, he actually said that, that statement cannot embarrass him. But it can distract the news media. It can make them far too busy to fact check all of Donald Trump's madness when he keeps pouring out this craziness that includes the possibility, according to Donald Trump today, of going to war with Canada, Greenland, and Panama. Donald Trump referred to our northern border with Canada today as, quote, his words, an artificially drawn line. Donald Trump said, quote, "You get rid of that artificially drawn line." That's what the northern border is to Donald Trump. Nothing more than an artificially drawn line.
Because if you don't have borders, you don't have a country.
He's been saying that for years, pretty much every day for years. You don't have borders, you don't have a country. And now Donald Trump says the Canadian border is an artificially drawn line. It's exactly the same kind of line on the southern border. The border Donald Trump lies about more than any other border in the world. Today, Donald Trump said, "I had the safest border in the history of our country by far." According to Donald Trump, the way you measure how safe the border is the number of apprehensions at the border and the number of deportations. Donald Trump deported 1.5 million people in his 4 years as president. Joe Biden deported 1.4 million people in his years as president. And Barack Obama deported 5 million people in his 8 years as president. That's 1 million more than Donald Trump in each of the 4-year terms of Barack Obama. On apprehensions at the border, the Obama administration apprehended more people than the Trump administration. Once again today, as in every Trump press conference, reporters could not in any way keep up with Donald Trump lies. Donald Trump said, quote, "Many hundreds of thousands of people on both sides are dead in Ukraine." His exact words were, "Many hundreds of thousands from each side are dead." Many hundreds of thousands in Ukraine. Many hundreds of thousands of Ukraine soldiers are dead. In fact, in reality, in the real world, Ukraine has lost 43,000. Western intelligence services estimate that Russia has lost 200,000. Donald Trump said many thousands of soldiers on both sides. A few 100,000 soldiers would be 300,000 soldiers. Many hundreds of thousands of soldiers would be what, 700,000 soldiers? This is the kind of lie that would have destroyed any other presidential candidate in history. Howard Dean was soaring in the Democratic presidential primary campaign in 2004 before he couldn't give a precise number to the size of the American military in answer to one simple question in one television interview. And that moment did enormous damage in the minds of many voters to Howard Dean's understanding of the role of commander-in-chief that he was aspiring to. He didn't know exactly how many people were in the American military. I, for one, don't think that that's the kind of moment that should define a presidential campaign. But politics isn't fair. And 21st century politics is so unfair that Donald Trump can lie about the deaths of hundreds of thousands of soldiers and get away with it. Because it's not his craziest lie in the avalanche of lies that was coming at those reporters in that room today. Donald Trump had one of those old guy moments at age 78 that, in fact, you can have at any age. He got a name wrong. It was a big one. It was an important one. It was one he really should know, but he got it wrong. And no one cared. No one cared the way they would care whenever Joe Biden got any name wrong. Today, when Donald Trump was discussing the Jack Smith reports on the special prosecutor's investigations of Donald Trump said Cannon was thrown off the case. Cannon was not thrown off the case. In fact, no one was thrown off the case. Cannon was thrown off the case. Those were his exact words. He was referring there to his favorite judge in history, Judge Aileen Mercedes Cannon, who issued an order today while Donald Trump was speaking, blocking the release of Jack Smith's report on Donald Trump. We'll discuss that momentarily with Andrew Weissman. Since no one was thrown off the cases involving Donald Trump, it's impossible to know who he meant. And I'm not going to guess. That's a mistake. Guessing what Donald Trump means when he says something incoherent is a mistake. That is an attempt to impose logic on what is coming out of Donald Trump's incoherent mind, and that is impossible. All we know is Donald Trump said Cannon was thrown off the case. And whoever he was talking about, he could not possibly have meant canon. It would be worth keeping account from this day forward of how many names Donald Trump gets wrong when he is speaking publicly, while at the same time tracking how many stories the New York Times does not do about Donald Trump getting names wrong. I, for one, don't think getting names wrong is a big deal. I repeat, not a big deal. But the Washington Press Corps believed that every time Joe Biden got a name wrong, it was a huge deal. It was a news story. And if that's their new standard for the presidency, they had better apply it now to Donald Trump every day. But Donald Trump knows they won't because of the massive avalanche of lies and nonsense about Canada and Greenland and the Panama Canal that will distract the reporters who will write stories about that. It'll distract them from targeting what they did every day against the Biden White House. We can guarantee you that the press corps will not apply the same standards to Donald Trump that they applied to Joe Biden. We can guarantee you that the press corps will not apply the same standards to the next White House press secretary that they applied to the current White House press secretary. They won't. They won't dare. Some of the most important and most ignored lies Donald Trump told today were about January 6th. Donald Trump's lying about January 6th is an absolutely necessary part of his plan to pardon the people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th, trying to overturn the presidential election for him. Donald Trump made up a lie about the FBI today when he insisted that the FBI knows who planted bombs in Washington the day before January 6th. The FBI has recently publicly asked for more help in trying to find that suspect. But Donald Trump told this lie. The FBI knows who it is. Okay? That means the day Donald Trump takes over the FBI, he will announce to us who it is. In fact, the day Donald Trump takes over the FBI, everyone in the White House press corps will forget that he said that today as one of his many lies. No other president in history has ever said anything like that about an ongoing FBI investigation. Donald Trump also lied today about something we all watched with our own eyes when we saw the horrible video of fanatic and criminal Trump supporter Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by Capitol Police while she was trying to climb through the broken glass of a door to get into the Speaker's office in the House of Representatives. Today, Donald Trump told this lie about Ashley Babbitt.
Ashley Babbitt was killed. She was shot. She had never been shot. She was shot for no reason whatsoever. In fact, they say that she was trying to hold back the crowd.
Ashley Babbitt never tried to hold back the crowd. Ashley Babbitt was in the front line, actively trying to break into the Speaker's lobby, and the video proves that. Here is Ashley Babbitt very much not trying to hold back the crowd. The next thing Ashley Babbitt did after she pushed her way to the front of that crowd was to try to climb through the hole created by the glass that she helped break in that door. And that is when she was shot. It is gruesome video to watch that is available online. Many of you have seen it before, and it is only because Donald Trump lies about it that we may have to repeatedly show you the actual video in the future. Here is a still image taken from another video angle of Ashley Babbitt actually climbing through the broken glass in that door. Ashley Babbitt wasn't holding anyone back. And no one was holding Ashley Babbitt back. And if they did hold Ashley Babbitt back, she would be alive today, and Donald Trump would be giving her a pardon. The Ashley Babbitt lie is a Trump lie meant to cover every member of the violent Trump mob who attacked the Capitol and beat police officers. The Ashley Babbitt lie will be used as part of the poison propaganda Donald Trump will issue when he issues the most corrupt pardons in the history of presidential pardon power, which he is publicly promising to do. Pardon the people who tried to overthrow the last presidential election for him 4 years ago. The Ashley Babbitt lie and the pardons are of a piece with the criminal plot described in Jack Smith's indictment of Donald Trump for crimes that a grand jury charged Donald Trump with, saying that he committed those crimes leading up to and on January 6th in his attempt to overthrow the presidential election. Jack Smith's report about that investigation has been blocked from public release by Judge Cannon today. A federal court of appeals could issue a ruling on that this week, the same week when Donald Trump is scheduled to be sentenced for the 34 felonies a Manhattan jury convicted him of. A New York appeals court today denied Donald Trump's attempt to block that sentencing on Friday of this week.